kind of got the countdown going.
Hey, man. The
All right.
Voyager, sober Voyager, love it.
Navigating the treacherous seas of recovery. All right, hey everybody, welcome
Love
to the
it.
show. We're live.
Love
My
it.
name's Rich Seidel. I'm your host as always. And today I just kind of want to just talk a little bit about we're in episode 2, basically of understanding addiction. And today we're going to be talking to Dr. Andre
Dr. Andrei Dakukin.
Dakukin, and he's otherwise known as Dr. Rehab.
Dr.
And
Rehab.
he is board certified addiction medicine doctor. What goes on? What? Tell us a little bit about your background and tell us about
Well,
what's happening.
the funny thing is, I'm a physician in recovery myself. Off the bat, I'll tell you. How much time do you have?
As long we're hanging out. We got hours.
Hours, okay.
Last show went. You know what? What's funny is one of our shows went like 2.5 hours or something.
Oh my God.
And it was like so random. Out of that one show, somehow 1,000 people watched that one show.
Oh, wow.
And it was like super long. And I think that it all depends on, I don't know how or why, because like I said, we're like a new podcast. And I've been messing around with it for a long time and stuff like that, trying to get it right, you know?
Okay.
But anyway, so yeah, so we got as long as we want.
So I went to medical school. I was a ballet dancer, believe it or not, in Moscow. Came to the U.S., broke my back, went to medical school because I didn't know what else to do with myself. Wanted to be a physical therapist. And in medical school, I thought, okay, let me go to physical medicine and rehabilitation because, bones and back pains and all these things, that's kind of like my cup of tea. I finished residency. And for some reason, this was this was actually early 2000s. Early 2000s.
In Moscow?
No, this was Brooklyn.
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, New York. Brooklyn,
Okay.
New York. State University of New York Downstate Medical School. And you had to do pain medicine for you to be kind of a full-fledged doctor for whatever reason. I can speculate on the reason. So I said, okay, let me go do fellowship in pain. I do fellowship in pain, and all I prescribe bunch of narcotics, okay, to people.
What year is this?
This is 2007, 2008. Actually, this is probably the pain fellowship was 2009, 2010.
Wow, that's when it was getting going
So,
on.
yeah,
That
yeah.
was when OxyContin, that was like big.
OxyContin, and in medical school, I remember receiving my first pain journal. I thought it was so cool. And they talked about Dilaudid, the molecule of hydromorphone, the Dilaudid. And I thought, oh my God, how interesting. And that was also back in the days when we started switching from prescribing pain meds only to cancer patients. And then, for actually with a good intention, we decided to extend that privilege, if you would, to people without cancer, with just chronic painful conditions. But it was meant to be for people who have tried anything and everything under the sun, and there's nothing else that is going to help them, and therefore they were supposed to take some pain medicine. So, of course, being in the United States,
Yeah.
we decided to take it
To the next level.
To the next
Well,
level.
I think really kind of, if you really look at it, it's like from the pharmaceutical company standpoint, it becomes about numbers. It becomes like literally about, the more people that you can find need that type of assistance, medically assisted treatment. I mean, you could call it nowadays MAT treatments is the term they use to. They phrased it very well because in some cases it really makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's when it gets abused that it stops making sense, and when it becomes really just about numbers, that's how we ended up where we're at today. I think it's interesting that like your timeline and your story starts right at that cross point, that turning point in the whole pharmaceutical.
Yeah, it was truly the turning point. I can tell you about history of how it all started. Actually, it was one of my professors in residency who said, hey, let's do a study and let's give these drugs to people without cancer. And sure enough, a lot of people did well. So Purdue Pharma read that little editorial in the back of the New England Journal of Medicine and said, oh my God, this is where the money is.
Right.
So then they came and they said, okay, let's do more studies. And all of a sudden, everybody who suffered from any type of pain, every type of pain was eligible to get pain pills, right?
They're fall into the demographic.
Yeah. So here I was, right out of medical school, prescribing 400 micrograms of fentanyl, like fentanyl patches. Remember those?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
People
The patches.
the patches. I would prescribe 4 of them at the same time, the higher dose. I would give 420 tablets of methadone to people for pain. And people would come to me and they would ask for more and more. And I was taught a very, very interesting thing. The pain definition was whatever you tell me, I need to believe you 100% without questioning.
And that's part of the medical
Right.
going through school and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's something that they teach you. It's like
Yeah.
you just listen to your patient, and if they're on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being highest,
Right.
they get they get more.
They get more, right?
Right.
So all you have to do is come back to me and say that you're 8 or 10. There was a subset of patients who obviously benefited from this, but what I immediately started to see is that how my meds were sold in a parking lot of the
So
clinic.
did you start seeing that happen?
Yeah, yeah. So we did a study. About 20% of our patients in our clinic were either abusing our meds or selling our meds.
Now,
And
how exactly do you go about doing a study at a clinic how do you study your patients, whether they're selling the prescriptions you're giving them? How did that go? How did you basically come to that?
we used multiple methods, Richard, but we actually followed urinalysis, like urine results of the patients who
So
came
you were
in.
testing them when
We're
they came
basically
in.
testing-
We're giving you all this stuff. Now we take a look at your levels, and you
Right.
don't got anything in you.
Right. So
What's
let's-
going on?
Exactly. People would come and they will be on, 30 milligrams of OxyContin, and
Yeah.
there'll be nothing in their urine, and we'll be like, "What the heck happened to the OxyContin that we prescribed to you?" You know.
Yeah.
Number one, or they would come in and there'll be other things in their urine from what is prescribed. So the estimate was, maybe 18 actually percent of people were not doing what they were supposed to be doing. And we thought, okay, this is just the cost of doing business. This is cost of trying to help the other 80% of patients. So there I was, graduated from that. I got my first real doctoring job. And I
Yeah.
thought I was so cool. Like I was at the
How
edge.
old were you at the time?
So I'm 50 now, right? So that was maybe 15 years ago.
Okay.
So, 35, 36 in the late 30s. One thing when you are in fellowship training, you don't have much say because you do what the senior doctor tells you to do.
Right.
So I got my first job, and these people who I took care became my own patients. And the relationship changes. When you and I met, you said, Dr. Dagukin. I said, don't call me doctor until I'm your doctor.
Yeah.
Because
right.
when you become somebody's doctor, it's a very different dynamic. It's a very different relationship. If I'm your doctor, it is my job to really, really try to take care of you, right? So when all of a sudden I inherited a bunch of these people who were on chronic opioids and their lives, you're responsible for a big portion of what's happening in their healthcare, and what I started seeing that by prescribing these meds to them, I was seeing nightmares, one nightmare after another nightmare. Nobody was getting any better. Nobody's pain was getting better. People were going through some serious demises in their lives. They were, and then I didn't realize they were getting, frankly, hooked on the meds. Now,
So would you say, like, prior to you were you a naive doctor, or how did you, like you said, oh, I think they're getting hooked on it. So like obviously there was a time in your life where you were like now obviously years later your doctor rehab is your new moniker, right?
Yeah.
So what was Andre like prior to, before becoming a doctor, getting introduced to these opiates and to these pain pills? What was your general, like, what were you as a little kid? Like, as a kid growing up, what kind of, like, did you smoke weed? Because you obviously went to medical school.
Listen,
like, look, you went to medical school, so at some point you had to be kind of like one of those honor students, somebody that was
Not really.
kind of definitely on the higher end academically. So what does your life look like growing up as, Andre? This is Andre, not tell me about Andre as a kid growing up. Like before you went to medical school, you were like, where'd you go to elementary school?
So my parents when I was 10
We'll get
years
back
old.
into the other. Hey, just so you know, we'll get back to the other stuff, but let's kind of digress or go backwards a little bit because this is going to be an interesting
Wow.
thing. The naive doctor,
The
like,
naive
and this is
doctor.
something.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
naive
yeah, yeah,
doctor,
yeah.
he becomes a naive doctor in some. You know, it has to do with your childhood because we want to know what that looks like. A doctor, because you know you've turned obviously. You were able to take a really let's say gnarly situation. I mean, the bottom line is when you became a doctor and the you know pills and everybody went from heroin overdoses and then it went to you know OxyContin overdoses and people, especially here in Huntington Beach, were dying left and right. It was out of control across the United States, and it's obviously exponentially even worse now with the fentanyl crisis.
Yeah.
But before there was fentanyl, there was the oxys, and before that it was the heroin.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and so.
yeah.
Where were you at as a kid growing up? Like, tell me about your parents and tell me about just life as a kid. As oh, little Andre, hey, can Andre come out and play? What's going on?
Imagine Soviet Union. Soviet Union in a fourth biggest city in the Soviet Union, Gorky City. Used to be called Gorky
Gorky.
City. My dad was a ballet dancer, and doing ballet and being professional dancers, it's a very, very good job in Soviet Union. You know, you get very nice money. You travel the country. You know, you get nice retirement when you're 40 because you cannot dance anymore. You know, you make plenty of money. Soviet Union, socialist state, everything was taken care of. You know, we took one month vacation by the sea every year, the whole family.
You guys
Traveled-
were kind of famous then, a little bit.
Not really.
Who?
no.
Wait. Who's the most famous Russian ballet dancer?
Probably Baryshnikov.
Baryshnikov.
Probably Baryshnikov in the United States.
Okay, but what
before,
about the
yeah.
girl who won all the Olympic medals?
Oh,
What
who
was
is
her
that?
name?
I don't know. Which
Oh
one?
man, she was famous. Like,
Look
well, I
it-
mean,
look it up.
I'm
I
gonna
don't
have
know.
to look that up.
They're-
So
they're
anyway, go on.
plenty.
Go
Anyways.
on. Yeah.
So my mom says, and my dad, they're like, listen, wouldn't it be nice that our son, you know, goes to the best ballet school and gets this profession so he can retire at 40, get a full pension, and have a wonderful life, you know, traveling essentially the country because it was a closed country at that time behind the Iron Curtain. That's how I ended up in a dormitory in Moscow in boarding school for 10 years.
Okay.
And I was not the best student because I did not have the body. I did not have the physique to be a really good dancer. okay?
Right.
So
You started kind of looking maybe like Will Ferrell. What was
no, man, Will Ferrell is much better than I am at that
you know,
stuff.
like what was that movie
No,
where they're
that's a
doing the ballet
compliment.
dancing and then all of a sudden they're
Gregory
you know,
Hines. Remember Gregory
Oh,
Hines?
Gregory Hines, yeah, he's a
Gregory Hines,
dancer.
White Knights. Gregory Hines
Okay.
is not around anymore. But Gregory Hines and Mikhail Baryshnikov, that was a White Knights movie. White Knights movie was pretty famous. Anyways, I had to struggle, and instead of being like the regular
Comaneci.
student,
Comaneci?
yeah,
I don't know.
man. I don't know. But
Okay, anyway, keep going. I'm
so-
looking it up.
and in order for me to become anybody, because that Bolshoi ballet school in Moscow, they took kids from
Yeah.
very famous people. They took people from kids from well-off families, the government, and I was nobody. My parents were really nobody from another little town.
So you weren't performing well, but so like when you live that kind of life in Russia, what is the drug? This is an interesting thing too.
Alcohol. Come
Alcohol.
on, man.
Okay,
Russia,
alcohol. Yeah,
Soviet
vodka.
Union, vodka.
Vodka.
You know, in Soviet Union, we used to say we have no drug addicts. You know, we have no gay, we have no drugs, we have no unemployment, we have no homelessness.
Yeah.
So of course we didn't have anything, but there was plenty of alcohol, right?
Right.
So alcohol was everywhere. The only drug available legally was alcohol. Now, people did use other substances. You know, if you would went to places like ex-Soviet republics of Tajikistan, which is now its own country,
Okay.
you know, people used some kind of probably marijuana derivatives, or they would use some other kind of substances which would get you high.
Right.
But you know, Russia, alcohol.
Alcohol.
100%.
So Andre
100%.
grows up ballet. did alcohol play a part in your childhood or in your youth?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
everybody drinks, right? So I probably had my first drink when I was 15 to
Okay.
intoxication.
Yeah. To
To
intoxication.
intoxication, right from the get go. If you did not drink, something was not normal, Richard. I mean,
Right.
it's everybody had to drink, and of course you would compete. How much can you drink? We would have people studying with us from the United States, from Canada, and we would have to make everybody really, really drunk. It was
Really
like
respect the
almost
Russian drinking abilities versus
ability.
American
Right,
and
right, 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 right.
Canadians. We can't be outdone. It's
You
always like
know,
so. There's always that competition. So that must have been
yeah.
interesting. So you had when you say you had get people staying with you, was it also people that were doing ballet?
Yeah, ballet school,
Ballet
international
schools,
students. Yeah.
international students would come and they'd live in your houses, and then you would travel to their houses and stay with them.
We were all in a dormitory. We were all
Dormitories.
in the dorms. Yeah. So
Okay.
it was imagine this, no parents,
Oh, right.
but just bunch of kids,
Okay.
and alcohol freely available. You didn't have to have an ID to get a bottle of wine. You would go to the store.
And they just sell it to kids.
They would just sell it to kids, and all you had to say is like, "Hi," and the clerk would look at you. He's like, "Aren't you a little bit too young to get this?" He's like,
Yeah.
"I'm getting it from my grandfather,"
Right.
and they
You
would give it
just-
to you. Yeah, there was no.
no IDing you.
No
there was no
IDing,
laws even
nothing,
probably about
nothing.
it.
If you want to buy alcohol, even if you're 14, you can go and get a bottle, no
Right.
questions asked. So that's how it started, essentially. So
you were kind of drinking and partying as a kid.
absolutely, absolutely. So that stuff continues because there was nothing really for me in the Soviet Union, and I could not get a really good job. I miraculously ended up in Juilliard School in New York City through some efforts.
For ballet.
For dance.
For dance.
I wanted to do a modern dance.
Okay.
And I wanted to bring modern dance back to Russia. I was a little bit naive. I had
Yeah,
this
yeah.
naive dreams. I'm going to go study modern dance and then come back to Russia and revolutionize the
Oh,
dance
you're going to bring the
world.
modern dance from here in New
Yeah,
York and come back to
yeah,
Russia.
exactly,
You and Will
exactly.
Ferrell and I can see that,
You
right? Yeah,
know,
it's like you got to be.
so-
What was that? The Blades of Glory.
The Blaze of Glory. I don't know what you
You
guys,
don't know what that
were
is?
watching here.
The
because,
Blades of Glory?
No, I know.
I
know
think
the name.
that's what it was. It was Will Ferrell and I forget the other guys. The guy's name from Napoleon Dynamite. I saw the movie. It was funny.
You know, I'm bad with names. I'm bad with Hollywood type of stuff.
Okay,
man.
okay. So anyway, so you're at Juilliard. So that's a pretty prestigious school
Yeah,
that you got into that.
so-
So you must have been. You must have talent.
Yeah,
Just-
no,
we're
no, no.
joking and laughing about.
Yeah,
what-
clearly,
making funny,
clearly,
but clearly you've got some
I got
talent.
a job. I got a job in the best ballet company in the world, which was American Ballet Theater. I think
Okay.
it's still American Ballet Theater these days. You know, so I was a kind of a mediocre guy in the best company in the world. Put it this way.
Okay.
So I made it that far.
That's pretty far.
Yeah. So they partied, man. Oh, they partied.
Okay.
You know, alcohol, pills. There were pills. You know, we had Patrick Bissell was a fantastic dancer, overdosed here in Orange County at the OC Performing Arts Center before
Wow.
it became Segerstrom years ago.
Okay.
So we had deaths in the company like that.
Right.
You know, for us, it was like, oh my God, they overdosed on what? Oh my God, what they were doing. So I have no idea what they were doing, but you know, alcohol and drugs was a part of the
Dance community.
dance community as
Yeah,
well. you
yeah.
know. So more alcohol, more alcohol. Where were we? How did
Well,
we get
you're
from
basically
alcohol to
kind
the
of doing. You're
opioids?
going from like, yeah, well, we're gonna get there. Like one of the
Yeah.
things I was kind of just wanting to get like a little backstory of how you became. You know, obviously there's a really interesting life you got here. It sounds. I mean, really,
Yeah.
really stoked to hear. I think people love to hear about who somebody really is, where they really came from, and you know, going to Juilliard and having this like life in Russia where you were kind of on the upper end of it from being in the ballet with your father also being in that. That kind of gave you guys a little bit more status, I would say, than the average person. So you lived a pretty comfortable life growing up there, right?
You know, my parents lived a life of a regular people.
Yeah.
It was not like we were making more money or anything like this. You know, being on a stage and dancing in front of thousands of people did not translate into having a bigger paycheck.
Oh,
So it was very, very different from how things here.
now
know.
maybe it's different now.
Now it's a little bit different, of
Yeah.
course. You know, now it's a little bit different. But back in the Soviet Union, it was, you know, I did dance in ABT in Metropolitan Opera House. I did have good roles and, performing in front of thousands and thousands of people. But again, the paycheck did not reflect that
No, okay, got
because
it. Got it.
I was pretty mediocre. So that's why I was like, you know what?
Hence, Juilliard. Now we're going to medical school. So let's talk about medical school a little bit.
So I dated this Russian girl, and she said, "Listen, Andrei, what are you going to do when you're 30? Your body's going to hurt. You will not be able to dance anymore, and you'll have no education. You'll have no trade besides, dance." And I said, "I'm going to be a very, very good choreographer, and I'm going to make a lot of money. I'm going to be a famous choreographer.
I'm going to bring modern jazz dancing back to Mother Russia, the Soviet Union.
So
What are they? Is it Soviet Union or Russia?
it was Russia already.
Okay, yeah.
So this was so the Soviet Union fell in 1989.
Right.
Yeah. So this is now Russia.
Take down that wall.
Yeah, Mr.
Or was that
Gorbachev.
what- Mr. Gorbachev, yeah.
take down that wall, and sure he did. Yeah, let's not go into politics these
Yeah,
days.
yeah. Take down the wall. Yeah, that's too much
So,
of that going on. So medical school. All of a sudden, the
medical
girl talked you
school-
into it. A girl.
She was right. I said to myself, enough is enough. And the life was pretty kind of messed up. It was bunch of alcohol, bunch of weed,
Oh, smoking a lot of weed too.
smoking a lot of weed,
Oh.
drinking a lot of alcohol, performing all over the world.
So you did.
dancing,
You went all
having
over the
A
world.
lot of fun. I mean,
Wow.
Richard, it was a dream
Yeah,
job, man.
that must be cool. I would
We
love. Too bad we can't pull
partied.
up some images and throw some pictures of you
Yeah,
back doing that.
We
That must be
partied,
cool.
we traveled, we had the high
It's like being a
life.
rock star.
Yeah, it was like
was
a
you're
rock,
a rock
star.
star.
Yeah, a little bit of that. So,
Dr. Rehab, former rock star, in
and
the
then you go to
dance
medical
company.
school, and they mix you with dirt,
Okay.
and you become nobody again. And that's when the drinking started to probably get a little bit on the heavier side.
Okay. In medical school.
In medical school, the anxiety of the fact that you have no money, you're living in New York City, you have no job. I had to have like 5 different part-time jobs.
How did you get over here to do all this?
You mean from United States,
From-
from Soviet
From
Union?
Russia, yeah.
Okay, so I was touring in Greece. I
Uh-huh.
bought a bunch of fur coats in Greece, in Athens. Tell me, why do you think they sell fur coats in Athens when the weather is like always
Hot.
hot?
Yeah, I don't know. That's
man.
interesting.
I don't know, but
Yeah.
I bought a bunch of them. I
Maybe
smuggled
because
them
the
back to
animals
Ru-
are there?
I
That's where they get their. I don't know.
know.
Maybe
Because of
that's
the-
where they make them.
because,
It's
because
like
of the
cheap.
trade. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I smuggled a bunch of fur coats.
Okay. Let's get real.
That paid for the ticket. I had a Juilliard teacher visiting from the United States. I met with her. I didn't speak any English, but I said, I want to do what you do.
Yeah.
I took her around to some cool places in Moscow. We had a translator with us who would translate from English to Russian, Russian to English. And he was a Russian employee of the American Embassy in Moscow. So he got me hooked with U.S. Embassy. I sent a videotape to Juilliard through the teacher.
Okay.
Juilliard extended me the scholarship.
So scholarship.
Scholarship.
Wow.
Yeah, a scholarship, and I was supported by the United States Information Agency. That was the agency which paid my stipend.
Yeah.
Juilliard gave me a full ride.
Wow.
So, back in the days, there was cultural exchange, there were money exchanged, people studied. So I'm a product of good times
Yeah.
between the U.S. and Russia. When
Yeah.
I came in and everything was just given to me, I lived in the Lincoln Center on like a 21st floor
Wow.
of the high-rise overlooking Lincoln Center. Everything was paid for. All I had to do is dance, So it's pretty,
Dude, that's so cool.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Wow. Cool stuff.
Yeah. And then the rock star life.
So wait
yeah,
a minute. How old are you when you hit Juilliard? Or
let's
no,
see.
actually, when you hit medical school. So you're at Juilliard, and then when does medical school?
30s, probably late 20s, early 30s. I don't remember.
Okay, right
yeah,
around
but,
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to school in what was it? 2002. That was the medical school, but the 4 years of college before that.
Okay. Yeah.
1998, I quit dancing. So
Yeah.
late 20s, early 30s. Yeah. Back to medical school.
Yeah.
That was a wake-up call.
Got it.
Imagine you're a rock star one day, and then the
I
next
can't
day,
even. That's the part I'm trying to wrap my head
And-
around.
and
All of a
then the
sudden, now
next
you're at
day-
medical school.
and not just any medical school, man. We're talking about Brooklyn. We're talking about Flatbush Avenue. We're talking about population of patients underserved
Okay.
in a crazy county hospital. The budget to heat up the multiple buildings of that campus was more than the Haiti nation of the Haiti island nation of Haiti. It was more than their gross domestic product
Just
per
to
year,
heat the
just
building?
to heat the buildings.
Wow.
We had a huge campus, completely overrun by people from the Caribbean, from all over the place,
Okay.
and
And those were the patients trying to get help,
patients,
underserved, marginalized.
Yeah.
So that's where you did your medical school and your internship.
Medical school and internship. And because of the county system, we had to be everything. We were the nurse, we were the social worker, we were the phlebotomist getting the blood, we were the transport. It was my job to transport the people to a CT scanner. We did everything because there were just no people who shortage of hands.
Right. So
So
you
it was
really
a-
learned to get like really involved personally
Yeah.
into the treatment of your patients. It wasn't just like, here's my clipboard on the door,
Right.
look at it, walk in, walk
Right.
out. You were way more involved
Yeah.
on a personal level.
Everything, man. We wiped people butts.
Yeah.
We cleaned their rooms. We talked to their families, and it was all medical students. It was actually a very interesting time. I remember it with a lot of gratitude, but at the same time, a little rough.
Yeah.
Here you are performing in Ipanema Beach in front of crowds of thousands of people who are like completely.
Wow, that's like a full culture shock right
yeah.
there, right?
And then-
You went from
and-
that to this.
And there you're in Kings County Hospital doing a night shift, and
Yeah.
you're like taking somebody's to the morgue and stuff.
So okay, so you did that. You got through college. Obviously, you graduated, and you had a good background, like working in depth with a lower a population, like you said, that was a little bit marginalized, and didn't have the means as like a lot of people. How does that translate into what you do now? Like, and then you got into practice, and how does that translate for you into addiction treatment and the population?
Full circle. I'll tell you how and why. Because after my opioid experience in the pain medicine, I myself had a divorce. I found myself after going to school for 12 years, 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, a year of fellowship or 2 years of fellowship, and all of a sudden you understand that all you're good for is a doc who prescribes a bunch of narcotic pills, and that's it. It was a downer for me to the extent that I started having a hard time looking at myself in the mirror every day. Now, clinically, I think I probably was an alcoholic at that time already. I did have an alcohol use disorder, thinking about it now. I was very functional at that time. Nothing has happened yet to me, but it was a big crisis for me.
So that was heavy. So we could actually
Yeah.
title this episode "From Dr. Feelgood to Dr. Rehab."
Yeah,
Think about that for yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, you went from but it weighed on your conscience. It was
It
heavy
did.
for you. It sounds like
Man, it
that's like
destroyed me.
Dr. Feelgood to Dr.
Yeah.
Rehab, and it was just eating you alive. That
Which
all
I
you
was
you did all that medical work, you did
Yeah.
all that schooling, and all you were seeing was people coming to you for
Yeah.
pain medication, pain management,
Yeah.
and they were using it
Yeah.
and abusing it. And then, like you said, now you got guys that are out there selling it.
Yeah.
So
It-
tell us a little bit about it.
It destroyed me. I didn't understand why at first, but I just knew that it was so wrong what I was doing.
Yeah.
We didn't do this on purpose. And despite the belief that drug companies paid us to prescribe, no, that's never the case. We did it out of our own consciousness. We thought we were doing good. We thought that we were helping people.
Right.
Now, there'll be a lot of people from the pain medicine world who actually, I got ostracized as a doctor because people from my own field, they said, what kind of a doctor are you? You're this for what you stand for. I got hate mail. I got thrown off the stages trying to present grand rounds in hospitals. And all I was showing is the statistics from the pain journals, from the science. And people looked at me like I was I was against the field. I was against the science. I
by
was against
by
the
bringing up the fact that this was causing addiction and a
yeah,
crisis.
yeah,
So you
yeah,
kind of flipped the script a little bit and you went into this.
completely.
Now I'm going to go out there and I'm going to be the ambassador for, hey, this is what's wrong with what we're doing.
You
We
know,
need to take a look at ourselves. So you kind of went on a little mission like
you
that and you
know,
got
yeah.
ostracized by the medical fraternity, so to speak, right?
One guy, after hearing my talk, came to me and he said, "My God, you and I were going to work together." His name was Stuart Finkelstein. Was a big addictionologist in Lakewood area in Los Angeles. Duck to the Stars. So everybody, starting from Prince to Michael Jackson, all celebrity people. He came to me and he said, "We're going to work together." So him and I worked. Now uh, after I quit my pain medicine practice, I spent probably 3-4 years, 5-6 years in nursing homes, doing kind of odd jobs, being called to hospitals to do pain consults, the stuff that I hated. People who wanted more meds, and they would call me, "Oh yeah, the cooking was going to go and give more meds." So I continued to hate myself. So Finkelstein came to me one day and he said, "Listen, when are you going to take over my practice?" I said, "Stuart, you have an addiction medicine practice. I have no interest in it." And at the same time, I knew that I was a drinker. So in the back of my head, I knew that I had a problem. I didn't realize the extent. I didn't know anything about addiction medicine. I barely knew anything about addiction,
Right, right.
despite the fact that I was probably responsible for getting people hooked on opioids.
Wow, that's heavy.
So I didn't know, and that even made more of a dent on my consciousness because now I was completely clueless after 14 years of schooling, realizing that I stand and I practice something that is not only killing people, but is something that is weighing very heavy on my consciousness. Something is killing me. Medicine was killing me. It was part of it. So Stuart one day called me. I came to his office, and on the way out, he went out for a cigarette. He picked up a smoking habit before he passed away, and he said, "When are you going to come and take over my practice?" I said, "Never. I don't like what you do," because in the back of subconsciously, I knew that I was one of his patients.
Mm.
I didn't want to admit it to myself. I didn't want to.
So you were realizing that you had an addiction
Oh,
problem,
yeah.
and the last thing you
Of
wanted to do
course.
was get involved with treating people with an addiction problem because of the
Big.
stigma associated with it, or just
It's the
because you were
dichotomy.
fighting it. Yeah.
Listen, it's the dichotomy when you don't understand. An addict's brain tells you one thing. You lie to yourself. You lie to others, but you lie to yourself, and you lie to yourself partially because you don't understand that your brain is in charge, and you as a conscious, as a mind, as a consciousness is completely on the back of the bus being thrown around, being driven by the organ of your brain, which is a completely runaway train. So arrogance. I am a doctor with two board certifications. I'm the pain medicine, the physical medicine, and rehab doctor. I am the rock star of the ballet world.
Oh yeah. Big
I'm
ego,
a
massive
Russian-
ego.
Massive ego. Completely empty shell inside, not understanding why the hell you're suffering so badly because you're doing what you cannot do anymore.
Yeah.
So all of these complex phenomena at the same time. So Stuart goes diving with his son-in-law, and he has a massive heart attack, and he dies.
Oh wow.
And they call me up, and they's like, "Listen, there's nobody in town who knows anything about opioids and anything about these meds, but you come and you take care of these patients." So I came in and I started studying and drinking at the same time. And that's when it actually started to hit home. I started to realize when you start learning about yourself, what is going on,
Yeah.
you know, that was an amazing life experience that opens your eyes, but not just your eyes. All of a sudden, you're looking inside of yourself, and I got scared, my friend. My home situation was falling apart because who wants to live with an alcoholic? I came home and I drank every night. I hated my wife. I hated my marriage. I hated my situation. I hated my job. I hated my work. Of course, you hate
You're
yourself.
escaping. That's the whole idea.
You know,
that's the
that's
whole
the whole
principle of
idea.
trying to like
Yeah,
become
yeah.
I just all this stuff I'm doing, I need to escape it. And
So
then it
yeah,
kind of goes beyond that eventually.
you know, there was no belief into anything. There was no solution to my problem in my mind, because hey, I knew it all. I knew it all. I even went to Russia. You know, once when my wife and I, you know, don't get me wrong, I love the woman who I married, and I still love her, but we just couldn't live together. You know, so one day I was like, okay, I'm going to get better. I went to Moscow to get disulfiram implant. It's the anti-abuse that people take for alcohol dependence. So I wanted to implant it into me because in Eastern Europe you can actually do it. In the United States you cannot do it.
Okay.
There's some legalities about it. I can tell you more later. So I went there and I called my mom and I was like, Mom, I'm an alcoholic. I'm going to get a disulfiram implant so I don't ever have to drink again. She's like, okay, no problem. So she paid for this whole day of rehab for me. Imagine a American doctor coming for rehab to Moscow for one day. Okay, how stupid is this? For one day, I show up and here I am. I was like, okay, give me the implant. And there's like a group of people, psychologist, a medical doctor, a bunch of other practitioners and clinical personnel. And they said, well, Andre, you know, we will give you the implant, of course, but since your mom already paid for the whole day, why don't you stay with us and let us talk to you? Let us find out what's going on. And I was like, no, give me the implant. They convinced me to stay just because my mom paid for everything. I didn't want my mom's money to go to waste. I'm sure it was pretty expensive, probably, you know. So I stayed. I got all day of kind of pampering and treatment, and the psychologist would come in the door in between each treatment and he tried to like put a little seed in my head. Hey, what about maybe you would want to talk about this? Maybe you can consider treatment. Maybe you can consider this and that. Of course, I refused everything. So I got the implant.
Got the implant, then what?
He got the implant. I flew back to the States. I did not touch alcohol for 9 months. Now, funny enough, before that, I actually learned how to beat the disulfiram by taking some medications in addition to that, so you can drink.
Of course you did. That's that's the sign of a good alcoholic.
That's
right
a
there.
good alcoholic.
That's
right
a good
there.
alcoholic right there.
Because
that's kind of like how you know. Hey, that's how you one of the definitely defining moments of your alcoholism.
it is. You know, I'm not proud of it these days, but I can still laugh at it, which is I think is good. So I figured out if you take non-steroidal. Oh, don't do this at home, by the way. I'm not going to give out the secret to people. Okay, drrehab.com. You know, come and visit for the recipe. Anyways,
if you want the recipe, go to drrehab.com.
You call me up. You know, so I stayed alcohol free for 9 months. Right. I wanted to do this for my wife, for my family. I didn't want to do it for myself, of course. The classic issue.
Right. There's another sign. Hey, that's another telltale sign of a true alcoholic. He's not doing it for himself. He's doing it for his family.
Absolutely.
He's doing it for his marriage. He's doing it for every other reason, but other than his own personal needs. That's definitely another. So let's see. You're batting 100 right now.
You know,
as an alcoholic.
Great. Let's see. Let me see if we can get it even higher. Okay.
Oh yeah, go higher.
So COVID hit, and that was probably the rock bottom of everything. I knew that I was killing myself. I knew that I was dying. There was no work. There was no nothing. And finally, I would just wake up and drink. And finally, my internal organs gave up. And finally, I ended up in the hospital.
Oh yeah, now you're batting 1,000.
So here I am in the intensive care unit, watching my blood pressure tanking. People around me squeezing bags with normal saline, trying to keep me alive, and there I was like, I guess this is it. You know, how could I go to work and ask for help? Are you kidding me?
Right.
This is like the most derogatory thing. How can I possibly admit to anybody that I am a doctor and I drink? I mean, are you kidding me? It's impossible.
That's that incomprehensible demoralization
it is
taking place.
Right.
Convincing yourself for that reason alone, I cannot get help.
No, I'm a rock star. I've done 12 years of school.
Yeah.
I can stop. I can do it. I can. Of course I can. And then at the time when I realized that I can't, I guess my brain was poisoned to the extent that I just said that, what, the heck with it. I'll die. It's okay. Whatever. It is my destiny. So somehow a bunch of
Rather
people.
than ask for help,
Right.
your brain tells you
Yeah.
just die.
Yeah. 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 I couldn't get out of bed. My urine was turning yellow. I was sick. I mean, I was really, 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 really sick. And another thing, as a doctor with the training, you can still rationalize everything. You're like, okay, now I've destroyed my liver. Now this is a pancreatitis. Okay, my urine is turning yellow because of the bilirubin. So now I'm not breaking up this stuff now. And you know exactly what's happening with you.
Right. So
And
you know everything that's going on
yeah,
physically, medically from that standpoint, but there's nothing you could do to arrest your addiction, your alcoholism,
I
so to
couldn't.
speak.
I
That's
couldn't.
really interesting. Kind of, it reminds me of
Yeah.
like what's funny is like listening to you from a medical perspective talk about your inability to overcome that craving, the addiction, what we're talking about right now,
Yeah.
with all the medical knowledge that you went to school for. Even that alone wasn't enough to enable you to stop. It reminds me of guys that are in the clergy, right? People who have God in their life, right?
Yeah.
Because 12-step programs are really founded a lot on this idea
Yeah.
of having a higher power.
Absolutely.
And these clergymen are kind of falling in the same category as you, where they have this relationship with God. They pray to God. They do sermons. They're out there, same thing. Their ego is overinflated because of their relationship with God, but yet they're also alcoholics and addicts, and they can't stop. And because of that same ego and that same, I don't know if it's ego so much, but it's the obstacle that keeps them from asking for help because they think that they should be already so empowered with their education and their life experience that they don't need this. And to even try to go and ask for help then reduces them to, I mean, I guess like everybody else, and
Yeah,
they just don't want to
exactly.
admit that.
Exactly.
That's the hardest part. Only to later on, only to meet the end, like what you're saying. It sounds like you're at the turning point. There's like this point of like you're either going to die or you're going to ask for help.
Yeah.
How did you get to a point where what happens next?
So I had a wonderful roommate. I had a cleaning lady and some other couple of friends who came one day and they realized in what kind of a shape I was. And they said, "You're going to the hospital." And because I really was, there was nothing else left. I said, "Okay, I'll go to the hospital." Some self preservation instinct worked for me. I said, "You know what? I think I'm not so sure if I really want to die." So I went. They took me there. I spent maybe a week in the hospital. Well, that was the ultimate step one. People say, "Well, did you do your step one?" I didn't have to work on the step one much because I was like there. I was like, this is it. There's nowhere else to go.
You know what's funny is, yeah,
Absolutely. I
power,
cheated the
so
step
step
one.
one, powerless and unmanageability.
Yeah.
It's a moot point at this
Yeah.
stage in your addiction, alcoholism. I get that because I literally did the same thing when I really came to a place of really being done. It wasn't. I'd gotten beat the fuck up so much that there wasn't anything left to do but full surrender. I didn't even need to really contemplate the unmanageability of my life. I didn't need to contemplate whether or not I could control it anymore because I'd spent so much time trying to come to like this ability. I was always trying to, if I just had more money, if I just could do this or better, if I could do that better. And I'd tried that so many times till I was just beaten so hard that I finally realized there's nothing left for me to do but full surrender.
Yeah.
So step one really was a moot point. I get that. But you went to the hospital. What was it? An addiction? What was it? What kind of hospital? Just the emergency room?
Oh, no, it was an emergency room.
So you went to the emergency room. You're dying.
Yeah, I was actually dying. I was in a hospital. I was in a Hoger Vine on the regular medical floor.
All right.
I had pancreatitis, inflammation of the liver. I had about 30% chance of dying. Well, thank God I didn't. They took a great care of me. And that was the time when I really realized that was a turning point. Of course.
So you're being pretty transparent right now. I think
Yeah.
that's really a key clutch thing. I mean, you work in the addiction treatment world. So you've got a background. So that was your step one. What's going on? Like this is kind of seems kind of recent, so to speak. To me,
Yeah.
it seems recent.
Yeah.
I've been sober 20 years, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
my step one, well, in
No, this is
2005 is when
I'm 4.5 years.
you're 4.5 years into sobriety.
Yeah.
Okay, in recovery. So
yeah.
you got it. You're not just Dr. Rehab, you're Dr. Recovery too.
Absolutely.
And you've got like a
Absolutely.
huge background. So
Yeah.
this is kind of like two different people. Like, so my background is alcohol and drug. I was an alcoholic drug dealer and I lived my life. My whole purpose was to be good at that, you know. And I don't really know if I was ever really good at it, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing. Ego, pride, this person that I was, the idea of like saying I was an alcoholic and that my life had gone to, you know, literally, I was literally had nothing when I got here. But it's interesting to see how the backgrounds, really your background, not only as being a medical doctor and having this rock star life and have all these life experiences, then having being beaten into your addiction beat you down, alcoholism beat you down literally to the point of like where you're at the death, like you're dying, you got to go to the emergency room or you're going to die.
Bottom.
This is about as rock bottom it gets.
Yeah.
Now you get to translate that. You have this huge background in opiates. You got this huge background in pain medication, alcoholism, addiction, and now Dr. Rehab emerges. Let's talk about that because you know what? It's like really a really great story because at the end of the day, it's like my story is like, so how I am effective in what I do, I think that what makes me effective is I have a long history of substance abuse and just, you know, literally just unmanageability as a result of my addiction and alcoholism and the lifestyle that I chose literally gives me this long run from the time I was 14 and 15. That's why I say I like to go back in the career and the lifestyle of a person to really look at how that can translate into the idea of like individualized treatment plans in rehab. Starts with people identifying, you know, the case manager or the therapist or the doctor having history in life experiences that can translate to the client, to the patient, in a real meaningful way where you get to identify with people. Not just from the medical standpoint, like literally you can disarm people by just telling a little bit about your story. And at the same time, you're also got this background of, I had a scholarship at Juilliard because you're going to get people in addiction and alcoholism that you've got the people that come from the park bench and then you got the people that come from Park Place.
Yeah.
And you got to be able to kind of, you know, bring it all together and really, really kind of connect with everybody. And so it's really important to be able to utilize your life experiences and as it translates especially into like almost dying from your addiction and then coming out the other side and then having a background in like, you know, so now how does that translate into let's get
it gets
there.
even more interesting. So
That's good stuff.
Now imagine I passed my addiction medicine boards before I almost died. I was drinking and I passed my addiction medicine boards.
Sometimes that just blows my mind when I hear people like, you know, even like, so if you read Dr. Bob's Nightmare, right?
Yeah.
In the big book of alcoholics. You've read it, right? This guy's shooting up. I mean, it's just the craziest. It's one of the best stories ever. Yeah. And it's like, that's what you're reminding me of right now. Like, you know
that's another compliment.
Well, because think about it. Like, I'm thinking of like, because I'm tying it all together. I'm like going, okay, wow, this is why it's really good for us, the audience, for yourself, really, even because like to be able to communicate really and be authentic and transparent, you know, with your story and your past. And, you know, that takes, there's always this obstacle people put up because they don't want people to know, like you said.
Absolutely.
But you know what? That's what kept you from getting the help. But it's also what will keep you from helping somebody else if you can't get vulnerable and you can't be open and transparent, honest. That's clutch in what you're doing. So I think it's funny. And in the story I was talking about, Dr. Bob's Nightmare, like it's, you know, we're talking about Dr. D's nightmare right now. And
So, you know, there is a difference of knowing the book and having lived through the book yourself.
Yes.
So I had a successful practice with patients who loved me, who listened to me, who I took care of.
Right.
But I also knew a little bit where they came from because I came from the same background. but by no means I was delivering the best care to the community of people with substance use disorders. I thought I did because, hey, I'm a book smart. I can tell you where does this chemical go? How does that chemical affect you? What do I do here? What do I do there?
Yeah.
I have the placard on my wall giving me the ability to do that.
Right.
For 9 months, most of people go through treatment. Most of people go through some kind of place. So a psychiatrist in Hogue in the hospital, he came to me one day and he said, "So what's now? What are you going to do?" He's like, "Don't go back to work. Get better." I was like, "Yeah." He said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I'm going to go back to Moscow and check myself into rehab because my insurance at that time did not cover. I had a huge deductible. And,
Right. Yeah.
I was like, let me go back to Moscow because I kind of wanted to go home.
Your family still lives there?
My mom is still there, yeah.
Okay.
My father has died because of alcohol use, unfortunately. So runs in the family. Most of my family is dead because of the alcohol.
Okay. So
Genetics.
now you got that experience too, adding more to your credentials. Unfortunately, those are like in this business, those are like, hitting rock bottom and going in those. That's kind of like, unfortunately, the stuff that really will enable you to help other people avoid death.
Hopefully.
That's the goal.
I watched my grandmother to succumb to it. Watched my own father succumb to it while I was drinking.
Wow, sorry to hear that. Yeah.
Uh,
While you were drinking, you watched that happen, and you kept drinking regardless.
Kept drinking regardless. Going to the medical school, seeing it in front of my eyes.
Wow. So right out of the book. It's like right out of the book.
Man.
Like right out of the book.
Yeah, right out of the book. So for 9 months, I was pretty much dry drunk. I managed not to put a drop of alcohol in myself. I realized I cannot practice. I cannot work.
Right.
If I continued doing what I was doing. Thank God I was given the chance to go back to work and do what I do now. But believe it or not, my first psychiatrist, back in the days when I was still married, we went to the psychiatrist and he talked to me. He said, "Andrei, do you believe in God? Do you where you came from?" I said, "I am from Soviet Union. I'm a godless creature. All we do is we're communists and we drink a lot of vodka." Okay.
Yeah.
He said, "Well, you know what, Andrei, AA is not going to be for you." I said, "Great."
You're like,
Great.
perfect. Sign me up. What do I got to do?
So I went to some life ring meetings. I went to some smart recovery meetings, but I avoided AA at all costs. I didn't want to do anything about AA. I meet my good friend him and I we used to do surgeries together in the operating room back in my first job, and was here in Newport Beach. I meet with him at the coffee shop, and he's like, "Hey, Andrei, what's going on?" I was like, "Hey, how are you? How are you? How are you?"
Yeah.
I was maybe few months out of the hospital, and he said, "What's up?" And I told him, I was like, "Listen, I succumbed to alcohol. I'm trying to, get back to my feet." He's like, "Wow, I'm 10 years in the recovery. Why don't you go and meet some doctors in recovery?" And I was like, "What? There are doctors who are in recovery?" He's like, "Yeah. It affects everybody, my friend. Like, what, you think you're so special? You like, who do you think you are, my friend?" Yes, there are doctors, there are lawyers, there are judges.
You're like a garden variety.
Yeah.
That's what they call it. Garden variety alcoholic. That's what you are.
You're nobody. You're an alcoholic.
Right.
Forget about what you have after your name, I was like, wow, sign me up. So I went to the meeting.
Yeah. This is a 12-step meeting?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. I went to the physicians, doctors meeting.
Okay.
Of course, I came in. I was like, "Come on, guys! I'm just here because I'm a doctor. I want to hang out with other doctors in recovery. 12 steps and all that stuff."
Yeah.
Well, little by little, if I would credit one place for my recovery, I think it would be the AA rooms.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot say that I'm exclusively AA. I don't read the book like a Bible. I'm not the best 12-stepper.
Right.
I sponsor only on occasion because I think I'm not a very good sponsor for the AA program itself, having not had the classic, drill of going through the steps but all of a sudden my doors were opened, Richard. I realized that there is whatever it is for many people, it's going to be different things. But talking about the personal treatment for you as a person. For me,
Individualized treatment.
individualized treatment.
Yeah, it is individualized, and that's important to recognize
You
is that it
know,
doesn't have. It's not one way for everybody, and that's why it's really
yeah,
important in our industry is to create client-centered care programs that are focused on each individual person and helping them meet them right where they're at versus just put them in the bucket.
yeah,
Everybody swims
yeah,
in the same
yeah,
bucket.
yeah.
This way, we create an individualized program, and it's really important to keep our eyes
Yeah.
on that in terms of
S-
being as helpful as we can and harmful as least amount of time as possible. Because I think sometimes it's more harmful.
Yeah, some people, the hardcore guys in the group, they're like, "Oh, did you do step 3? What are you doing? You didn't do this. You didn't do
Yeah.
that." I was like, "Hey, hey, 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 let me do my thing. Let me do my thing." But my doors were opened, and what I realized that I saw the empty shell.
Okay.
The big doctor. This the
Man, it sounds like you're
names.
going through lots of transitions. You have a lot
Yeah,
of awakenings. Those are,
yeah,
in the big book, there's a thing in the back, and it talks about spiritual experiences and spiritual awakenings. It says they're used many times in this book,
yeah.
and it talks about what they are and how they manifest themselves in many different forms. And listening to you right now, what I'm hearing is you're having these spiritual experiences that all of a sudden accumulate, and you have an awakening, and you're having another one right now. So it's really interesting. It's like learning how to tell your story and really like breaking down this is even now I consider this a spiritual experience. Two guys talking about
Absolutely,
recovery, life, all that
absolutely.
stuff is we're gaining and so much from it. And hopefully that there's an awakening. It even comes from this. But and
I
I'm
hope
listening to you
so.
talking. It's like you're having these awakenings throughout your progression of your disease is
Yeah,
one portion of it, and then there's the awakening into recovery, and then the progression of your recovery. So it's life is a series of progressions and
absolutely,
setbacks, and but
absolutely.
once you can start recognizing them and really being able to utilize them in story, right? Because it's our stories that we have that are what's going to impact other people and help them be inspired, find courage to make the changes that we have seen are so difficult to make, no matter where you're at on the spectrum, whether you're a doctor, a preacher, a park bench dope fiend junkie, a drug dealer, a kid with no education, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Their
yeah, yeah, yeah.
progression, they have these awakenings. So now you've gotten to this place now. Tell us about this next awakening.
Well, the next awakening is, as I said, a realization that of emptiness, of a complete spiritual bankruptcy.
Hmm.
Despite the fact that I read all these books and I have all these exams and I had to pass all this,
Yeah.
really spiritually, Richard, I was an empty shell. And then you realize that it's a beautiful experience at the same time, but a scary experience at the. It's like all of a sudden you realize that you're swimming in the ocean. You're keeping your nose above the water, but you have no idea where the ground is, and you don't know how much strength you've got. So you're taking it day by day. All of a sudden, you start to become curious. What if? What if? What if? And that's how it started for me. It was actually AA that opened those doors, and all of a sudden, I realized, my God, how much is out there,
Mm.
how much I've
Wow.
been missing. My next chapter was Buddhism. I immersed myself in Buddhist books and in the philosophy. My next chapter was one book after another book, third, fourth. Everybody who I read, whatever you read, and I read and I read and I read. I went back to the steps, read the book, did the steps, did the recovery dharma, did the program like this and program like that, and mixed it with a little bit of this tradition, that tradition, and little by little, takes years. I'm finally coming to a realization that at least I know what the path looks like. That you're not swimming anymore. I know where the ground is. So now it's just you have to walk it.
That's really a really great story right there because I remember like one of the most important. I heard this in a meeting. My sponsor told me he goes, go to meetings and listen to what other people do, and if you like
Yeah.
what they're doing and you see that they're successful in life, you do what they do, and you could go around and you could start copying everybody a little bit. And what There's the line in the book that says, and they say that the reason most people relapse is because they fail to enlarge their spiritual life, right?
Yeah.
Failing to enlarge your
Yeah.
spiritual life. So the opposite of failing to enlarge your spiritual life is to enlarge your spiritual life through the books, right? So you're out there seeking new ideas, new philosophies to gain another foundation in spirituality that you were, well, as you said, you were talking about, how did you say that? You're from Russia. Say that one more time. What did you say? How
I
did you
don't
say it?
remember.
You said, you go, I'm from Russia.
I'm a communist. I'm a godless communist ballerina creature, So he
Yeah.
said, no, AA will not be for you. It's funny how how the AA grows on you and how you all of a sudden realize that the language in which the book is written is just a language. Listen, it's just semantics. Two white guys in Ohio in 1939. What else could they write about? So that's the language is written in a language that
Isn't it? Isn't it? Is it? It's really amazing how to listen to you tell your story. Because you're from Russia, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, there's a culture that went
Yeah.
along with it, and then you
Yeah.
add that to like the medical side of your background too, which is another kind of culture too. There's like some culture tied into that
Yeah, yeah,
prevents you. Another, I want to say, obstacle to spiritual growth. But
Absolutely.
like it's almost like being a scientist, for instance, right? And to hear in like this is the caveat to the whole thing. So we've got say it again, a godless,
communist, godless
creature, right? That just drinks alcohol, right? That's
Right,
that's your description. But then you take that, and then what we're talking about now is how you go from that, and how do you get there? You beat yourself into a state of willingness and reasonableness that otherwise would never have found you to be able to go out and explore new ideas and philosophies of spirituality and personal growth that otherwise would have been void of your culture, being again the background that we were talking about, which we can laugh about because it is funny, right? But it's like, bam, I don't want to say AA strikes again, but AA strikes again, and
AA
now
strikes again,
you
yeah.
go from being this godless, communist creature of alcoholism and lifestyle choices, medical. You're just thinking you're. What do they call it? Egomaniac, medical doctor, prescribing medications.
Exactly.
And then through all of that, now you start on this journey of spirituality that you would have been otherwise completely missing. Completely missing. And it's funny when you started talking about the books.
Yeah.
In my journey, I went through the same thing. And I was a Christian. I still am a Christian. You know what I mean? I do, in God we trust type of stuff,
course, of
but
course.
I was like, I was selling drugs at church still. When I was a kid growing up, I would do dope deals in the bathroom at the church when I was like 12, 13, 14 years old.
Yeah.
And I don't mean big dope deals. I mean selling joints to
Yes.
some of the other kids in the youth fellowship.
course.
That's the kind of guy I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
growing
yeah.
up. And so even though I had the background of church, my mom was the Sunday school teacher and, it was always around me. I was like, again, I just was a kid growing up in Orange County doing his thing back in the 70s. But it was only through like the utter defeat, but the seed was planted there, and I started the progression of my recovery. First started with the basic elements of like, I'm powerless over alcohol and drugs. My life is unmanageable. I don't know what to do with my life. I needed help. I needed some direction. I need somebody who had been where I'd been, done what I'd done, and was willing to take me through the steps that they took in order to turn their life around. And then that becomes the catalyst of like your background, where you're at, and your ability now to help other people in their addiction, not only just from your experience point level, but now you've got this medical background tied to that experience. Now you begin the progression of your recovery and these little awakenings that you're having all the way down the path. This is what people have to look forward to if they're just open-minded enough.
Yeah.
Where did you find that open-mindedness, and where did that start? How did that start playing into it? Like,
Wow, that's a great question. I'm a very thick-headed guy whose ego,
you're Russian.
exactly. Who's the thickness of the skull,
funny.
man. It is just unpenetrable.
Yeah.
And you push some ego into that place.
Yeah.
My God, what you get is a disaster.
Yeah.
What humbled me at the very end was not even the demise. what humbled me was the ability to recognize the greatness of many philosophies and teachers, and all of a sudden you see so much goodness, and how the spiritual life and all these ideas of the reasons for existence, and I'm talking about some spiritual things right now. That what was humbled me, because if not for the experience, I would have never ever ever learned what I've learned.
Sure.
I have in our meeting we have a guy who goes, "I'm so and so, and I'm blessed to be an alcoholic, addict, and alcoholic." And I came to him once and I said, "Listen, why do you say you're blessed, man? It's like, listen, I get it. Like, we got something out of this experience. We've learned a lot, but are you really blessed?" He's like, "Absolutely, because without this experience, I would have never seen in front of my eyes. I've never would have opened my doors to all of this information, to all of this greatness and goodness out there. So that's what I think. How
That's
it
a
came
really
down to
good
me.
point. That's like one of those. I used to have. It's so funny. It's like if you're out there, one of the a really common theme is I used to totally cringe when somebody said I'm a grateful alcoholic. That was
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
heard.
yeah, yeah,
Grateful, like why would and when I mean, and I get it. I was on
yeah.
fire for recovery, but the idea of being grateful
Right.
for having to be here where you can't ever use or drink again,
Yeah.
otherwise you end up in the hospital on life support, right? And to be grateful for that, in the beginning, I used to hear that and go, you know what? That is like literally the dumbest thing I've ever heard. There's no way.
Right.
And I don't know when it happened, but when there was one day when I realized exactly what you said, because of what you are and who you are, and you would have, even in my early recovery, I didn't understand it. But it was only after a while, I don't know how long it took for me to really understand what the depth of that saying really meant and why. And it's because of the spiritual life that you've grown to today and the ability to continue to grow, have an open mind, and allow new experiences to affect you and alter the course of not just your life, but the way you think and the way you believe and the way you feel. And that's a price. I mean, that's like a priceless gift that you would never have thought you ever wanted. And that's why that's why that saying is like, oh God, I am grateful for
Yeah.
I'm grateful for Alcoholics Anonymous. For me, when I say it, it's like I'm grateful for the program of the 12-step program, because it's through that program that I developed this new ideas and this new thinking and this new way of life on my own, even with, going to church and learning all this stuff. I remember, being in, I remember being in jail and I was like all of a sudden locked up, and I had this realization that, hey, you know what? I am sober. I remember thinking to myself, I wanted to be sober on January 2nd, 2005. And I asked God on December 3rd, God, I need to be sober on this day because I need this and this and this to happen. And so I made a plan and I was going to do it. And, I was going to stop on December 14th. That was my goal. I came down, I told my girlfriend, listen, December 14th, we're never getting high again. I'm not getting high again. And I'm going to be sober on January 2nd. Well, December 14th came and December 14th went. Right?
Yeah.
December 15th comes
Yeah.
and goes, and 16th.
Yeah.
And everything, every intention, every idea that I ever had that I could do this on my own, I was, back to Montebello doing drug deals. I was back in Redlands doing drug deals. I was back in, just San Bernardino, across town doing everything that I was doing. And lo and behold, I ended up, getting arrested. And the point was not to go into that story too much. My house got raided and I ended up losing everything. I lost custody of my son. I ended up back in jail. And I was sober on December 25th, and I realized that I was sober and that I wasn't getting out until December 31st. I was going to actually make it to being sober, to getting to this event that I needed to be to.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I did this. God, in my prayer, he did this for me, right?
Yes.
So I was thinking to myself, okay, I went straight over I was still in jail, right? And I found a Bible, and I went into the Bible, and I go, okay, because I didn't have AA. I wasn't doing AA at the time.
Yeah.
I just got into the Bible, like, okay, this is going to keep me sober. I started reading the Bible for the next 6 days, reading scriptures and just getting into it, thinking, okay, God, you got me. Well, guess what? On December 31st, they let me out. Like on December 31st, they let me out of jail.
Oh.
Yeah, that's New Year's Eve.
And what happened?
I drank. Yeah, so all my good intentions again went out the window.
Yeah.
And then on January 1st, I drank again. But I made it to my appointment on January 2nd, and that's where I ran into my sponsor. And that was the event that kind of changed my life, because at this point I was beaten into that state of reasonableness. But that's the journey of how God, even with all my greatest intentions, and I had the Bible in my hand, I believed in God, I thought that God was with me the whole time, but I couldn't manage to not start again. That was the problem. And that's why the 12-step program in Alcoholics Anonymous, when I realized that that had done something for me, that program alone had done something for me that no other program or way of thinking or lifestyle choices could have ever done. And that's why I became grateful when I really understood that learning the spirituality and the difference between religion and spirituality and the lifestyle choices and the guide and the direction for living that you get out of a 12-step program is probably one of the most valuable tools. I mean, in fact, it is the most valuable tool that I have today.
Yeah.
And that's why, like you said, that gratitude, you understood what blessing meant. And now that's the next level of your awakening. All right. That's pretty good stuff.
Yeah. So that's going back to your original question, taking care of the people with addiction.
Yeah.
So
let's get to that.
Before my own true sobriety, I still didn't understand. Even being alcohol free, even having the medical board degree in addiction medicine, I still didn't understand.
So
now past couple of years that I have been actually doing it.
Okay. So tell us about how you got to doctor rehab. How'd you get into that? So wait a minute. Let's go back to you took over you took over the addiction.
I took over the addiction medicine practice.
You took over the addiction medicine, and that's where's that at? Is it still
Long
operational?
Beach.
It's in Long Beach. Okay.
Yeah, it's in Long Beach. We were in Lakewood, moved to Long Beach. We partnered up with an intensive outpatient program.
Okay.
And we were extremely lucky to get a contract from the county where we actually have a flood of patients who we act almost like an urgent care for people with addiction. So if anybody needs anything and they're looking to get help now, they pick up the phone, and if they have medical, as long as they have medical, our doors are open. So my job
is it just but it can't be from Orange County.
Los Angeles County.
Los Angeles County
Could
only?
be. If a person decides to switch their medical from Orange County to Los Angeles County,
then
even if
go.
they start the process, they don't have to even have the number yet, they can come.
Okay.
So my job is to meet people at any stage of their addiction, even if they're completely do not understand what it is that they're looking for. And I get people who range from, okay, I'm done, I need help, please help me, to, well, I don't really know why I'm here, my girlfriend found you online, how can we help you? I don't know if you can help me. So my job is to take anybody from that whole spectrum of readiness and see how can I tease out a little bit more, a little bit more, because everybody can give you a little bit more, and it doesn't matter. My goal is not going to be take that person who has no idea why they're there, and they're not going to be sober tomorrow. They're probably going to go, and they're probably going to relapse, and they're probably going to come and do my thing. I'm from a relapser club. They're going to do my thing for God knows how long, but that's not the point. The point is plant the seed. I think it grows. It grows in most of the brains, because brain is a malleable tissue. It has a lot of juice in it. If you put the seed in there, it'll grow. It'll grow.
So that is really what we become as seed planters. It's like basically sometimes that's all you can do is plant the seed.
Yeah.
And that's important to just recognize that. And then it's what you do at the aftercare part of it too that's important.
Yeah.
So you guys are kind of like an urgent care for addiction medicine.
Yeah, we range from almost like an urgent care. Come in, pick up the phone. You need us, we'll be there. You come in.
Do you guys do Sublocade or
everything?
Everything. Okay, wow. Okay,
whatever
good.
you can think of.
Yeah, so we're gonna put all the links into the comment section and stuff like that.
And we do things that nobody else does.
Okay, got it.
We do things like electromagnetic brain stimulation. We measure people's EEGs and we match them into the transcranial magnetic stimulation devices. We do high technology. We do leeches, hirudotherapy, which is used, it has been used in Russia for thousands of years.
Okay.
It's for those purposes. So whatever I can employ, whatever I can
That
get
whatever
my
you can do,
hands
all
on,
right.
whatever the patients can afford or whatever the insurance is paying for.
So we're going to expand that over here into Surf City Recovery then.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Oh,
Is we want
yeah.
to take what you're doing there and we want to bring it to our clients over
Listen,
here.
it is the only way, because back in the days, and I'm fairly new to the scene. I've been around for 10 years, but my understanding was that we are in Orange County. This is the capital of the United States for detox, for rehab.
Pretty much, right?
I think statistically, 60% of the detox and rehab places are in California are in Orange County.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we are the hub, okay? And the industry has always been run not the doctors would never talk to the IOP would never talk to the doc. The docs are nowhere to be found because there are very, very few of us who actually get it, who understand what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
The specialty is very new. There are very, very few people who understand the medicine. So that's why the doctors were never around. In medicine, we're still being looked at as a low life drug addicts.
Right.
I came to a big facility, and the facility's chief operating officer happens to be a friend of mine, and they have maybe 7 or 8 big federally sponsored clinics, FQHCs we call them.
Yeah.
And my friend said, "Listen, we would love to have addiction medicine on board as part of our program that we offer to patients, because we have plenty of people dying from fentanyl, alcohol, and all these other things." And we were so excited. And you know what the board of the directors said?
What?
The board of the director of the place said, "We don't want these people in our waiting rooms." So essentially, they don't want me in their waiting room.
Yeah.
And the biggest misconception that the people who do need help, who want help,
Yeah.
I told you that we went from this private, bougie IOP with bougie catering services for privately insured and cash paying patients into a complete medical.
Right.
And you know what? I love it. We do not have a single person. One person was tried to steal my my wallet, I think, but that's okay. They were high. We don't have a single incident in the past year and a half that we've been operating. We don't have a single misbehavior incident in our waiting room. I've never called anybody. I've never spoke to the police. I've never raised my voice in my waiting room. Before that, for the bougie clients, I had the police. I had the pictures being thrown off the walls.
Right.
I had the facilities destroyed. So no. The misconception is that these people, talking about you and I,
right,
these people, that we are going to be the problem. No.
Yeah.
No. Obviously intoxicated people are the problem.
Right.
So,
Anybody, at the end of the day, you just got to remember, it's like, we try not to preach from a mountaintop of like superiority. We know that those people that's me 20 years ago.
Exactly.
And
that's
I don't,
me 4.5 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. And so I never try to be a hypocrite. And it's like why it's important to have a background and understanding and compassion and empathy for the alcoholic and they're still suffering in their disease. You can't really expect much more from that. And they know that they're operating from another place.
Yeah.
And so to try to expect anything different is like really naive and it just demonstrates again the lack of education that a lot of medical people have when it comes to addiction.
Doctors are the worst. Listen, we still in the emergency room, if you have a person who's coming in and they know that they're a user of some sort.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
Get them out of here.
Right.
You know what they call them?
They're med seeking.
Yeah, they call them gomers. GOMER. Get out of my emergency room.
Oh, really?
Another gomer came in.
Oh.
Yeah. We still use derogatory language, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And this is medical field, Richard.
Right,
This is doctors.
Yeah.
And you know why? You know how many lectures? You know how much time I spent in addiction medicine in medical school?
How much?
I don't know. Medical school, right?
Medical school. Not much. Probably not very much time at all doing it, really.
Well, how many days, how many months, how many weeks, how many hours?
Oh, I mean, at least I would imagine semester? No, half a semester or a quarter of a semester?
1 hour. I had a guy like myself, came from Manhattan, stood in front of our class. Our class had about 100-something people.
Yeah.
And he gave us his story, which is kind of like my story, how he became a person with an alcohol use disorder. And he said statistically, 20% of people in the world are going to be afflicted by this, and 20 out of you sitting in this room are going to be one of us.
Mm.
And I just sank into my seat because I think I knew it was coming to me.
Yeah.
1 hour, Richard.
Yeah.
1 hour. 1 hour. We don't consider, even the medical school doesn't teach you this to you as a disease.
Wow. That's incredible.
It is. It is.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Because it's so low on the, I guess, what is it, like the spectrum of importance to the medical industry.
Yeah.
It really plays such a small role. It's almost like
Almost
insignificant.
non-existent.
They don't even care about the overdoses and
No.
the deaths. If it wasn't,
No.
I mean, really, it's incredible to me too,
Yeah.
because it's the whole. It's so destabilizing to the economy, to our society.
It's a disaster. We're
It's like-
dying
it's
as
a
a
disaster.
nation. We're dying as a nation. We're dying as a, yeah.
You know, I feel like sometimes the whole drug culture is, a CIA, that is designed to
Oh, yeah.
put people to sleep and not question authority and to really derail
Yeah.
really intelligent people. Because one thing that I've noticed about alcoholics and addicts is that most alcohol and addicts are highly intelligent people with gifts beyond measure. It's always that way. Whenever I meet recovering addicts and alcoholics, I'm just impressed and amazed by their level of, a lot of times it's the education. There's a lot of educated people, and then there's the people that didn't get the education. They got derailed as a child growing up in their adolescence, but then when they come out of it and they go and they get sober and they start a program of recovery, all of a sudden who they truly are comes into fruition. And I have a guy that works for me that, he was like he was dying every other day on, Narcan and on a Narcan drip, just skateboarding and doing, fentanyl, just to the point of like literally never really discovering who he was. And it's just amazing. I use him as an example a lot because I'm around him, and I was impressed with his academic abilities once he got sober and he was given some responsibility. All of a sudden his true self is emerging, and it's amazing to me. And I mean, across the board, everybody, there's a room of people out there right now that they're all like highly intelligent, educated people. And a lot of them get their education afterwards. But once they get sober, work a program, start working the 12 steps, because generally that seems to be the number one component that they all have in common, is that they're actually working a 12-step program. And out of that, then the awakening comes and they start developing real life skills and life skills, basically, that get them their college degrees, get them their education, or kind of brings out the business acumen that they didn't really know existed. And it's amazing to me.
Yeah, we spent heck of a lot of time and effort and brain power on trying to either hide it or get it or take it to another level.
That's exactly the point. And all of a sudden, when you take out that and their energy and effort goes into
Rechannel it to
positivity
something
it
positive.
goes, yeah, exactly. It's incredible, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So what's the name of your rehab?
Roots Through Recovery is our intensive outpatient program.
Okay.
Our medical practice is Roots Addiction and Psychiatry.
Okay, got it.
So, but Roots, the founder of Roots, opened up the place in about close to 10 years ago.
Okay.
And we're in Long Beach, located in Long Beach. And we're one of the very, very few places that combine medicine and therapy space together under one roof.
And that's the gentleman that passed away?
No, that is another gentleman.
Oh, that's another gentleman. Okay.
The gentleman who passed away was my predecessor in the medical practice.
Okay,
But
got it.
I merged my practice with the IOP.
Okay.
Because I realized, and the owner of the IOP realized that standing by ourselves separately, we're not as good. If we combine the forces, that's when the good outcomes begin. Because we are under the same roof, so we talk
intensive
to each other.
outpatient programming, and then combine it with the
Medical-
psychiatry medical approach to
medical
everything.
approach.
So,
So,
you
I
got
can go
both
to the
sides.
therapy. Yeah, we meet regularly. We discuss clients regularly. We are constantly in the communication all day long. I can knock on the door of the therapist and say, "Hey, listen, what's up with this guy? This is what's going on. We can discuss and see how we can improve things. We are able to catch things that people are slipping through the cracks and not getting better, or getting even further in trouble. So it gives us, it puts us in a different level. The County of Los Angeles, I think, is very happy with our performance. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this here, but I am very, very proud of the model that we have. Again, back in the days, it was okay. Doctor does what the doctor does. He just prescribes meds. Well, you know what? If you're a doctor, that's bad doctoring, man. Come in. Oh yeah, here's just a med.
Right.
Because oh, okay. Here's a topic for you. Oh yeah, how many people come to me and they say, "Hey, you are the doctor, right? You're going to cure me, right? You're going to make me stop drinking, right?"
Yeah.
You
Well, I
know,
know that family
you
members,
are
when they're talking to about,
right.
what's his treatment plan looks like? What are you doing for him? How come he's not getting better?
Right. But for me, this is yet even another level because the doctor attached to you and they think that you're some kind of an ultimate authority. I'm
Yeah.
just a part of the team.
Right. Yeah.
That's what's the attracts me to the industry. It's the beauty of the industry. I'm part of the team. I'm not the doctor who is the
Cure.
cure.
I'm part of the
Because
cure.
there is no cure, number
Right.
one.
Yeah.
Number one, there is a treatment, and we will get you. I'm a teacher.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm nothing but a teacher.
Right.
The experience humbled me. I thought myself that implant of disulfiram of anti-abuse is going
Right.
to cure me.
Yeah.
Oh boy, I was wrong. And the poor guy who kept knocking on my door, the psychologist, trying to sneak in and try to plant that seed in my head. He did plant that seed, I think, because
Yeah.
I still remember him. I still remember his face, But people show up and they're like, okay, give me the drug, give me the medication.
Mm-hmm.
And a good point that you mentioned, the medication assisted treatment.
Right.
It's also a bit of a gimmicky because they advertise or give a misconception that if I put you on this medically assisted treatment, somehow you're going to get better. And the problem with my predecessor and his patients that I've inherited is that he largely did medications only, and people were not engaged in treatment for most part. So we would put people on Suboxone, and we kept them on the Suboxone for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Later to realize that they're going to pick up alcohol because they never actually achieved anything. So medication is a crutch, Me as a doctor, I can give you a crutch. It's better than nothing, okay?
It's like the idea behind it has always been, okay, this is where we're going to give them that moment to try to just get the respite, get the break away from the drugs.
Yeah.
And then try to that seed that you plant or was planted earlier, we try to either germinate it or we're in the process of planting a new seed, because maybe it never got there. But it's that window of opportunity that the medically assisted treatment program will allow if the person is willing enough to kind of take it to the next level and start working on I guess you call it the spiritual side of the program. That's what we call it.
Yeah.
And it's just get the education going and get the fellowship and community to support them and give them the freedom to not have the addiction, the craving, the obsession that will ultimately kill them because it will return.
It will.
But with
with
the intervention with the Suboxone or Subutex or Sublocade, which is more wonderful because it really allows them to get that window of opportunity that will enable all these other interventions through whether it's the 12-step introduction or smart recovery or spirituality, whatever area they choose. I know it's more or less going to be from a 12-step program, community and fellowship and service and learning how to think less of yourself and more of other people. That kind of does help out. But when you're in your addiction, you're so consumed with feeding the addiction, you can't think of helping other people ever. But that MAT program will give you that moment.
It buys you freedom.
It buys you freedom.
It buys you freedom.
But you got
to
have the other interventions come in simultaneously during that window. Otherwise, it's just going to be. It's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
Again, until they start using again.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So, all right, check this out. We're at 1:28, 1 hour and 28 minutes, which I think is pretty good. We kind of just winged through that.
This is awesome.
One of the, what's really great is, I think we could do a regular show with just me and you, just hanging out, and we could learn all about different stuff and just have a lot of fun. And do that kind of stuff. And we should kind of schedule another, maybe once every 2 weeks or once a week, you can come in and we can just do another quick hour and a half and just
Oh, yeah,
chat and
absolutely.
pick a topic, and you can come in with a topic and some, stuff you want to talk about. And we've got the facility and the opportunity to,
Wow.
to share
No,
with the
this is-
audience.
yeah,
And
this is incredible. Yeah, this is
we'll
really,
get you
really-
on your social media and
Yeah.
get everything
Oh, yeah.
going and kind
Oh,
of just do
that'll be
that and
great.
kind of just build together,
Oh,
because
that'll be
we're
great.
in the same business together. And I
Absolutely.
think that we should, bring our communities
I'm in.
together.
I'm in. Yeah.
And I think that'll be good. So I want to thank you for coming out here today.
course.
It's been a
Of
pleasure. I
course.
know we were trying to get this thing going, and it was almost not going to happen. And then, lo and behold, how our
Yeah,
industry
yeah,
is. Something that was supposed to happen didn't happen, and
yeah.
and now you're here. And I think it's been really fun, and it's been really cool.
Yeah, thank you for scheduling it the
yeah,
last time.
it was really cool.
yeah,
I'm really
thank
stoked
you.
on hanging
Thank
out
you,
with you.
Richard. This is
So
great.
anyway, you guys, hey man, if you can do me a favor, here, look,
Uh-huh.
subscribe, what is it? And then share this episode. If you need help, give us a call at this number here, 714-841-3863. If you liked what you heard, we're going to post some other stuff in here, and we'll get a little bit more information on routes and where you're located at. And then again, tune in next week, because we're going to do another episode, and we'll get the all this stuff. See this stuff? That's me, right? And I didn't have time to post this up, but because look, I kind of made a mistake on yours. I don't know how I did it, but look, it messed it up. See how I did it really? Let me see if I can get that to come out again.
That's okay. We'll fix it. We'll fix
Yeah,
it.
so I'm not the
Yeah.
greatest when it comes to all that stuff.
No,
But
listen, it's
I
impressive. It's still impressive.
It's impressive. It's good enough. And then
impressive.
we got, it's like, hey, join us here each week. We're never really on time. That's my problem. Join us at 11 a.m. if you see that. Forget that. Just join us whenever you see us pop up for now. And if you need help with insurance, give me a call. I got all the little bells and whistles here. So again, look at that. See, we can throw little banners up for you too.
Awesome. Can't wait.
And then, so yeah, stoked to be here. And then we'll just do the goodbye, everybody. And then we'll just do the outro. Thanks for joining in. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you guys again. Subscribe, like, comment.
Beautiful.
I don't even know if you need all that stuff, but we got it. And then it just
man.
it just makes it all fun.
Oh, this is great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's pretty cool. Man, that was cool.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah,
that
it's
was
fun,
great.
huh? Yeah,
That was
it's like,
great.
man, you got a good story. You got cool stuff.
Yeah.